My son said he was broke. Then I saw his mansion on TV. I froze. If you're watching this right now, don't skip. Don't scroll past. Don't tell yourself you'll come back to it later. Because what I'm about to tell you didn't just break my heart. It exposed a truth so painful, so deeply buried inside me that I still feel it every single time I close my eyes at night. And I mean that, not as a phrase, not as a way to hold your attention. I mean it the way only a mother can mean it. So before we go any further, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. Wherever you are in this world, I want to know how far this story travels, because stories like this one don't belong to just one person. They belong to every mother who ever loved more than she was loved back. Every parent who gave quietly while the person they gave to lived loudly. So tell me where you are. I'm going to read every single comment.
It all started on a quiet Tuesday morning. The kind of morning where everything looks normal, where the light comes in through the curtains just right, where the birds outside sound peaceful, where the air is still and soft. But something deep inside you feels wrong. You can't name it, you can't point to it, but it's there, sitting in your chest like a stone you swallowed in your sleep. I was standing in my small kitchen, stirring a pot slowly, watching the steam rise into the air like silent thoughts I couldn't quite catch. The house was quiet, too quiet. Not the kind of silence that brings peace, not the kind you feel after a long day when everything is finally still and you can breathe. No, this was the other kind. The kind that reminds you that something is missing, that someone is missing. The kind that follows you from room to room, sits beside you at the table and watches you eat alone. Ever since my son David moved out, that silence had become my shadow. 3 years. 3 whole years since he packed his bags, since he stood at the door with that backpack over his shoulder, since he turned around one last time and smiled at me. That smile, I can still see it, wide and bright and full of the kind of confidence that only young people carry, the kind that hasn't been tested yet, the kind that makes you believe anything is possible. He hugged me at the door, he held me a little longer than usual, and then he pulled back, looked me in the eyes, and said the words I had always wanted to hear. "Mom, don't worry, I'll make you proud." I believed him. I always believed him. Because when you raise a child alone, when you are both the mother and the father, when you wake up before dawn and come home after dark, when you skip meals so they don't have to, when you work with your body long after your body is asking you to stop, you don't just trust your child, you build your whole world around them. Every sacrifice becomes a brick, every sleepless night becomes a wall, every prayer becomes a roof, until one day you look around and realize that the home you built isn't made of wood or concrete, it's made of love and hope and belief. And that morning, standing in that kitchen, stirring that pot, I still believed.
My phone buzzed on the table. I wiped my hands on my apron, the old blue one with the frayed edges that I kept meaning to replace but never did, and I picked it up. A message. From David. 3 words. "Mom, I'm in trouble." My heart dropped instantly. That feeling, if you've ever been a parent, you know it. It's not fear exactly, it's faster than fear. It's that thing that happens before your brain even processes the words. Your body just knows. I didn't even think. I called him immediately. It rang once, twice, 3 times. He picked up, and the moment I heard his voice, something inside me tightened. Not because he sounded terrible, but because he sounded careful, like someone choosing every word before they say it. "Mom," he said, low, tired, almost shaking. "What happened?" I asked quickly, gripping the edge of the table. There was a pause, a long one. The kind of pause that isn't silence, it's calculation. But I didn't know that then. Then he said something that made my chest feel like it had been hit. "My business failed." I froze. I lost everything. I'm broke. The word broke echoed in my head like a crack in glass. "I haven't even been eating properly," he added quietly. That sentence, that one sentence destroyed me, because no mother, no matter how tired she is, no matter how little she has, should ever hear that her child is hungry. It goes against everything inside you. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "I didn't want to stress you," he replied quickly, too quickly. Looking back now, I should have noticed that. The speed of that answer, the smoothness of it, the way it came out already formed, already polished, like it had been prepared in advance. But I ignored it, because love doesn't always question. Sometimes love just reacts. "I'll send you something," I said, and I did. That same day, I transferred money I didn't have to spare. Not because I was rich, not because it was easy, but because he needed it. And when your child needs something, you don't stop to calculate. You find a way. Days passed, then another message came. "Mom, my landlord is threatening me." I sent more. Another week went by. "Mom, I might lose the apartment." I sent even more. Each message heavier than the last. Each call more desperate. Each story more detailed. He told me about the business partner who betrayed him, about the deal that fell through at the last minute, about the clients who took his work and disappeared without paying. And I listened. Every time. I listened the way only a mother listens, with my whole heart open and no room for doubt, because doubt felt like a betrayal, and I had already lost his father. I wasn't going to lose faith in my son, too. So I gave, again and again and again. I started selling things, small things at first, the extra pots I kept in the corner, the old radio his father used to play on Sunday mornings, some clothes I hadn't worn in years. Then bigger things, the small television in the bedroom, the cabinet his father built with his own hands on a weekend long ago, the one he sanded smooth and painted carefully and was so proud of, the sewing machine I used on the side to make a little extra. One by one, the things that filled my home disappeared, until the house felt even emptier than before. But I told myself it was okay, because things can be replaced. A child cannot. Then one morning, I stood in my room in front of the small mirror above the dresser, and I looked at the gold chain around my neck, the one his father gave me not long before he died. We were standing outside under a tree. The evening light was orange and low, and he placed it around my neck slowly with both hands, the way he did everything, deliberately, gently, like he knew it mattered. He looked at me and smiled. "Take care of our boy," he said. I had worn that chain every single day since, through the funeral, through the grief, through the years of raising David alone. It wasn't jewelry to me. It was a promise. My hands trembled as I reached up. I stood there for a long moment, fingers resting on the chain, feeling the weight of it, the warmth of it, remembering. And then I took it off, and I sold it, for my son, and I told myself his father would understand. He would understand. Weeks turned into months. Life settled into a rhythm. Wake up before sunrise, cook, pack, walk to the roadside stall, set up, stand, serve, smile. Hour after hour under the sun, through the heat, through the long, slow afternoons when business was quiet and my feet ached and the sweat never seemed to stop. But I stayed because that stall was everything I had. My customers knew me. Some of them came every day. Some had been coming for years. They called me Mama, not just as a name, but as a title, as a sign of respect, and I loved them for it, because some days that was the only warmth I felt. At home, the silence had grown heavier. The money I was sending David had left gaps in my own life, smaller meals, fewer lights on in the evening, shoes that needed replacing but would have to wait. But whenever the worry crept in, whenever I sat at the edge of the bed at night and wondered if it would ever get better, I thought of his voice. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll make you proud." And I pushed through. Because that's what mothers do. We push through. We hold on. We keep going. Even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Then one evening, everything changed. I came home later than usual. My body felt heavy in a way that went beyond tired. Not just my feet, not just my back, all of me. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fully fix, that rest doesn't fully reach. I dropped my bag near the door, pulled off my shoes slowly, walked to the small chair in front of the television and turned it on. Not to watch anything, just to fill the silence, to have a voice in the room that wasn't my own thoughts. I leaned back and closed my eyes. The TV was just noise, News, adverts, a music show, more news. Then a different kind of program came on, bright and glossy, and the kind where the cameras are smooth and everything looks expensive. The host was walking through a beautiful property. I still had my eyes half closed. And here we have one of the youngest real estate millionaires in the country. I didn't move. A man who built his empire from scratch. Something made me open my eyes, and this luxury mansion belongs to David Cole. My heart stopped. David Cole. No, it couldn't be. I sat up slowly, leaned forward. The camera panned across a massive white mansion, columns at the entrance, perfectly shaped hedges, a fountain in the circular driveway, luxury cars parked in a row like trophies. And then the camera found the man standing at the front. My son, my David, standing there in a fitted suit, smiling, confident, healthy. He laughed at something the interviewer said, easy and relaxed, like a man without a care in the world. I stood up. I don't even remember deciding to stand. My body just moved. I walked closer to the television, close enough to touch the screen, and I stood there staring at my son's face while the world seemed to tilt beneath my feet. The room was spinning, but I couldn't move. The camera followed him inside. White marble floors, high ceilings, art on the walls, a staircase that curved upward like something from a dream, security guards standing quietly at the doors. A life, a full, abundant, beautiful life that I knew absolutely nothing about. The interviewer smiled warmly. David, your journey is truly inspiring. From nothing to all of this, how did you do it? David smiled calmly. That smile, I knew that smile. I had watched it grow from his first tooth. Oh, it wasn't easy, he said smoothly, but I stayed focused. I kept going even when things were hard. The interviewer nodded, and then came the question. Did anyone help you along the way? Any mentors, family, anyone who believed in you when you were just starting out? I leaned closer. My hand went to my chest without thinking. I was holding my breath, waiting, praying. He laughed softly, that easy, rehearsed laugh. No, honestly, I did it all alone. Alone. The word hung in the air of my small room like smoke. I stared at my son's face on that screen, at the smile that didn't waver, at the eyes that showed no hesitation, and something inside me broke. Not loudly, not the way things break in movies. No crashing, no shouting, no dramatic moment. Just quietly, deeply, like a thin crack running through the very center of something you built your whole life around. Alone. All those nights I went to bed hungry so I could send him more. He did it alone. All those days I stood at the stall until my knees ached. He did it alone. All the money, all the sacrifices, all the "Mom, I'm broke," all the "Mom, I haven't been eating." Alone. I sank slowly into the chair. My hands were shaking, but the tears didn't come. Sometimes pain is too deep for tears. Sometimes it just sits inside you like a weight no one else can see. And that night, the weight was immovable. I didn't sleep, not even close. I sat in that chair for hours. The television turned itself off eventually. The room went dark. The neighborhood grew quiet outside. And I just sat there in the darkness replaying everything. Every phone call, every message, every desperate story. The business partner who betrayed him, the deal that fell through, the landlord, the apartment. Each one now looked different in the dark. Each one now had a new shape. I thought about the gold chain. I thought about the cabinet his father built. I thought about every meal I skipped, every luxury I cut, every moment I told myself he needs it more than I do. And then a thought came into my mind that I couldn't silence. If he lied about this, what else was he hiding? I didn't want to think it. I pushed against it, because what mother wants to believe that her child looked her in the eyes, even through a phone screen, and chose to lie? Not once, not twice, but month after month after month, looking at a woman who sold her memories for him and chose to lie. I sat with that question all night, and by the time the sun started coming up, I had my answer. Not about what he was hiding, about what I was going to do.
The next morning, I made a decision. I didn't call him. I didn't send an angry message. I didn't go to a neighbor and cry. No, I wanted to look at him. I needed to see his face. So I went to his mansion. It took me almost 2 hours to get there. 2 buses and a long walk on a road I had never been on before in my life. The kind of neighborhood where the streets are wider, where the trees are taller and more carefully shaped, where the houses sit far back from the road behind high walls and iron gates, where everything feels like it belongs to a different world. As I walked down that road, I felt something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not yet, just strangeness, like I had walked into a story I wasn't supposed to be in. When I got to the gate, I almost turned back. I stood there for a full minute just looking at it. The tall black iron gates, the security camera above, the intercom panel on the side, the perfectly paved driveway beyond. I looked down at my clothes. Simple dress, worn sandals, the small bag I carried everywhere. Real. That's what I was. Real. While everything here was performance. I walked to the gate anyway. The guard stepped forward. "Who are you here to see?" "David," I said quietly. "Tell him his mother is here." The guard looked at me for a moment. Then he spoke into his radio. Minutes passed. Long ones. I stood there in the heat, not moving, not looking away from the gate. And then it opened. And there he was, my son, walking toward me slowly. He was dressed casually, clean, well-rested. He looked well. He looked very well. When he saw me standing there, he slowed for just a moment. And in that moment, before he rearranged his face into something warm, before he opened his arms and said my name, fear flashed in his eyes. Just for a second, but I saw it. "Mom," he said, smiling now, "what are you doing here? Why didn't you call me?" I stepped forward slowly, just one step, and I said one word. "Broke?" The smile flickered. "Hungry?" Silence. "About to be homeless?" His eyes dropped to the ground. "Mom, I can explain." "Explain what?" My voice came out quieter than I expected. Not a shout, not a scream, just broken. "I gave you everything," I said. "I sold my memories for you. I wore the same pair of shoes for 2 years because I sent you the money I would have used to replace them. I sold the chain your father gave me." He flinched. "Mom, I starved for you." He ran his hand through his hair, the way he used to when he was a child and he had done something wrong and didn't know how to say it. "Mom, I didn't want you to depend on me," he said finally. "Depend." I looked at him for a long moment. So that's what it was. He looked at his mother, the woman who raised him alone, who worked herself to the bone for him, who sold her last piece of his father to feed him, and he saw a burden, a liability, someone who would depend on him. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because sometimes when pain goes past a certain point, it comes out as a smile. "Don't worry," I said softly. "You won't have to carry me." I turned around and walked away. Behind me, I heard him move. "Mom, wait." His voice was different now. The smoothness was gone. "Mom, please, let me explain. Just come inside, please." I kept walking, one foot in front of the other, down the paved driveway, through the gate, back onto the road, back to the world I came from. And with each step, I felt something shifting inside me. Not healing, not yet, but something, like a chapter closing. The weeks after that were the strangest of my life, because I expected to fall apart. I expected the grief to arrive the way grief usually does, in waves, unmerciful, crushing. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Clarity, like a fog that had been sitting over everything had finally lifted. I could see my life clearly for the first time in years. The stall, my customers, my hands, my strength, all the things I had been too busy surviving to truly notice. I started waking up earlier, not because I had to, because I wanted to. There's a difference. I started cooking with more care, adding small touches I had been skipping because I was always tired, always worried, always thinking about the next message from David. A little extra spice, a garnish, a real smile with every plate. My customers noticed. One woman, an older woman named Grace, who had been coming to my stall for almost 4 years, stopped one morning and looked at me carefully. "Mama," she said, "something has changed in you." "What do you mean?" I asked. She tilted her head. "You look lighter," she said, "like you put something heavy down." I thought about that all day. She was right. I had put something down. Not my love for my son. Love doesn't work that way. But the weight of believing that his success was my responsibility. The weight of thinking that my worth as a mother was measured by how much I could give. The weight of a lie I had been carrying without even knowing it was a lie. I put that down, and I started to breathe again.
Then something unexpected happened. My small food stall started growing. Not because I changed everything, but because I changed. Customers started coming who had never come before. People brought their friends. Someone filmed a short video of my food and shared it online. I didn't even know until a young woman came one afternoon and said, "Mama, you're famous on the internet." I laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't had in a long time. More people came. A local newspaper sent someone to interview me. A community radio station called. And then one afternoon, a man came to my stall in a clean suit. He sat down, ate slowly, looked around quietly. Then he looked at me. "I want to invest in you," he said. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly that," he said calmly. "You have something real here. Real food, real care, real story. I want to help you build it." I had been offered things before. Small things, things with strings attached, but something about the way this man sat at my table, the way he finished every last bite before he spoke, I believed him. We talked for a long time that afternoon, about the food, about my life, about what I wanted. What did I want? No one had asked me that in years, and sitting there, thinking about it for the first time in a long time, I realized I had an answer. That was the beginning. Not the beginning of everything, but the beginning of everything good. Within months, I had moved from the roadside stall to a proper restaurant. Small, simple, but mine. Every table chosen by me. Every recipe perfected by my own hands. Every staff member trained by me personally. The name on the sign above the door was my name, not David's name, not his father's name. Mine. The first evening it opened, I stood in the doorway and looked at the full tables, the warm light, the sound of people eating and laughing and living. And I thought of the gold chain. I thought of the cabinet. I thought of all the shoes I didn't buy and all the meals I skipped and all the hours I spent worrying about a man who was standing in a marble foyer while I stirred a pot in a silent kitchen. And I thought, he didn't build me. I built me. Within a year, a second restaurant. Within 2 years, a third. My face appeared in a magazine. Not a gossip piece, not a sad story, a success story. The woman who started over. And for the first time in years, I wasn't surviving. I was living. And I want to stop here for just a moment, because I know some of you watching this right now are in the middle of your own version of this. You're giving everything you have to someone who doesn't see it. You're selling pieces of yourself for people who have convinced you it's your job. You're calling it love when sometimes it's just fear. Fear of being seen as a bad mother. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear that if you stop giving, they'll stop calling. I hear you, and I want you to know something. Your worth is not measured by how much you can sacrifice. The people who truly love you will never ask you to sell your chain. So keep going, keep building, keep choosing yourself, because the life you deserve is still there waiting for you, even now, even after everything. Then one evening, about 2 years after I walked away from that gate, I saw him again. I was standing near the entrance of my restaurant. The evening rush had slowed, the staff were cleaning the last tables, the warm light spilled out onto the street. A car pulled up slowly, and he got out, David, but not the David I saw on that television screen, not the man in the fitted suit with the easy laugh and the marble floors.
This man walked slowly. His shoulders were low, his face was tired. He stood on the pavement and just looked at me. I didn't move. He walked toward me, stopped a few feet away. "Mom," he said. His voice was different. All the smoothness was gone. "I lost everything," he said. There it was, the same words, the same tone, said in a completely different life. He looked at me with eyes I hadn't seen since he was a small boy. Not confident, not calculated, just a son. "I need help," he said quietly. The old me would have already reached for my phone, already been calculating how much I could send, already been reaching for whatever was left to give. But I wasn't the old me. I looked at my son for a long moment. I looked at his face. I looked at the man he had chosen to be. And then I leaned forward slightly and said softly, "Do it alone." His face collapsed. His eyes filled. He opened his mouth, closed it. "What?" he whispered. "Do it alone," I said again. "The way you told that interviewer you did it the first time." He looked at the ground. I stood up straight. "I taught you that," I said. And I walked back into my restaurant, back into the warm light, back to the life I had built with my own hands, from nothing, with no one telling the world about it. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, did she ever forgive him? And I've thought about that question more than I can count. Forgiveness is complicated. It doesn't always look the way people expect. It doesn't always mean a hug and tears and sitting down over a meal and saying, "It's okay, I understand." Sometimes it's something you do quietly, inside yourself, for yourself, not for the person who hurt you. Because carrying that weight, walking through your new life with that bitterness in your chest, that doesn't punish them. It only costs you. And I had already paid enough. So yes, in my own quiet way, in the place inside me where I talk to God and to his Father and to the parts of myself that no one else sees, I forgave my son. Not for what he did, but so that I could be free of it. As for David, I heard through others that he eventually started over, smaller this time, humbler, less flash, more work. Whether he ever truly reckoned with what he did, I cannot say, but I hope he did. Not for my sake, for his own. Because a man who can look his mother in the eyes and say, "I did it alone," while she is going hungry at home, that man is not free. He is carrying something too. He just hasn't admitted it yet.
And me? I kept building. One restaurant became a small chain. The story kept spreading. More women came to me, more mothers, more people who had given everything to someone who forgot to say thank you. And I told them all the same thing I'm telling you right now. You are not defined by how much you can give. You are not loved less because you've stopped sacrificing. The life you want, the life you deserve, it is still available to you, even now, even after the betrayal, even after the loss, even after the silence. It is still there, waiting for you to choose it. So here we are, at the end of this story. But before you go, I need to ask you something, because you've been here with me this whole time. You followed me through the kitchen and the phone call and the stall and the gold chain and the television screen and the gate and the restaurant and every single quiet night in between. You were here. And I think you were here because part of this story is yours too. Maybe it's not a son. Maybe it's a daughter, a partner, a friend, a sibling. Maybe you've never sold a gold chain, but you've sold something. Your time, your peace, your dignity, your sleep, your dreams. You gave it away to someone who called it love but treated it like something they were owed. So I want to ask you, if you were in my position, would you have forgiven him? Not what you think you should say, what you actually feel. Be honest in those comments. I'm reading every single one. And tell me where you're listening from, what country, what city, what part of the world you were sitting in when this story found you. Because stories like this one travel for a reason. They find the people who need them. And the last thing I want to ask you is this. Share this. Not for me, but for the person in your life who needs to hear it. The mother who is still giving everything. The parent who is still waiting for thank you. The person who is quietly building themselves back up and doesn't know if anyone notices. Let them know someone does. Let them know they are not alone, and they never were. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the comments.